आता सुरू केले.
Sukadeva Goswami continued, even after being cursed in this way by his own spiritual master, Bali Maharaja, being a great personality, never deviated from his determination. Therefore, according to custom, he first offered water to Vamandeva and then offered him the gift of land he had promised. Bali Maharaja's wife, known as Vamandeva, who was decorated with the necklace of pearls, immediately came and had a large golden water pot brought there, full of water with which to worship the Lord by washing his feet. Bali Maharaja, the worshipper of Lord Vamandeva, jubilantly washed the Lord's lotus feet and then took the water on his head. For that water delivers the entire universe. At that time, the residents of the higher planetary system, namely the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Vidyadharas, the Siddhas, and the Karanas, all being very pleased by Bali Maharaja's simple, non-duplicitous act, praised his qualities and showered upon him millions of flowers. The Gandharvas, the Kimpurushas and the Kinnaras sounded thousands and thousands of kettle drums and trumpets again and again, and they sang in great jubilation, declaring how exalted a person is Bali Maharaja and what a difficult task he has performed. Even though he knew that Lord Vishnu was on the side of his enemies, he nonetheless gave the Lord the entire 3 worlds in charity. The unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had assumed the form of Vamana, then began increasing in size. Acting in terms of the material energy until everything in the universe was within his body, including the earth, the planetary system, the sky, the directions, the various holes in the universe, the seas, the oceans, the birds, beasts, human beings, the demigods, and the great saintly persons. Thereafter, Bali Maharaja, who was occupying the seat of King Indra, could see the lower planetary systems such as Rasakala on the soles of the feet of the Lord's universal form. He saw on the Lord's feet the surface of the globe, on the surface of his calves all the mountains, on his knees the various birds, and on his thighs the varieties of air. Bali Maharaja saw beneath the garments of the Lord, who acts wonderfully, the evening twilight. In the Lord's navel, he saw the sky. On the Lord's waist, he saw the 7 oceans. And on the Lord's bosom, he saw all the clusters of stars. My dear king, on the heart of Lord Murari he saw religion, on the bosom both pleasing words and truthfulness, in the mind the moon, on the chest the goddess of fortune with the lotus flower in her hand, on the neck all the Vedas and all sound vibrations, on the arms all the demigods, headed by King Indra, in both ears all the directions. On the head, the upper planetary system. On the hair, the clouds. In the nostrils, the wind. On the eyes, the sun. And in the mouth, fire. From his words came all the Vedic mantras. On his tongue was the demigod of water. Vamandeva. On his eyebrows were the regulative principles, and on his eyelids were day and night. When his eyes were open, it was daytime, and when they were closed, it was night. On his forehead was anger, and on his lips was greed. O king, in his touch were lusty desires. On his back was irreligion, and in his wonderful activities or steps was the fire of sacrifice. On his shadow was death. In his smile was the illusory energy, and on the hairs of his body were all the drugs and herbs. In his veins were all the rivers. On his nails were all the stones. In his intelligence were Lord Brahma, the demigods, and the great saintly persons, and throughout his entire body and senses were all living entities, moving and stationary. Bali Maharaja thus saw everything in the gigantic body of the Lord. King, when all the demigods, the followers of Maharaja Bali, saw the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who held everything within his body, when they saw in the Lord's hand his disc, known as the Sudarshana Chakra, which generates intolerable heat. And when they heard the tumultuous sound of his bow, all these caused lamentation within their hearts. The Lord's conchal, named Panchajanya, which made sounds like that of a cloud. The very forceful club, named Kamodaki. The sword, named Vidyadhara, with the shield decorated with hundreds of moon-like spots, and also Akshaya Sahayaka, the best of quivers. All of these appeared together to offer prayers to the Lord. These associates, headed by Sunanda and other chief associates, and accompanied by all the predominating deities of the various planets, offered prayers to the Lord, who wore a brilliant helmet, bracelets, and glittering earrings that resembled fish. On the Lord's bosom were the lock of hair called Srivatsa, and the transcendental jewel named Kaustubha. He wore a yellow garment covered by a belt, and he was decorated by a flower garland surrounded by bees. manifesting himself in this way, O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities are wonderful, covered the entire surface of the earth. With one footstep, the sky with his body, and all directions with his arms. Bali Maharaja, along with all the priests, acharyas, and members of the assembly, observed the Supreme Personality of Godhead's universal body, which was full of 6 opulences. That body contained everything within the universe, including all the gross material elements, the senses, the sense objects, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, the various kinds of living entities, and the actions and reactions of the 3 modes of material nature. As the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets, and not even a spot remained for the third step, for the Lord's foot extended higher and higher beyond Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, and even Satyaloka. Thereafter, on the day of Somapana, after the sacrifice was finished, Garuda, king of the birds, understanding the desire of his master, arrested Bali Maharaja with the ropes of Varuna. When Bali Maharaja was thus arrested by Lord Vishnu, who was the most powerful, there was a great roar of lamentation in all directions throughout the upper and lower planetary systems of the universe. King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamandeva, then spoke to Bali Maharaja, the most liberal and celebrated personality, whom he had arrested with the ropes of Varuna. Bali Maharaja had lost all bodily luster, but he was nonetheless fixed in his determination. King of the demons, you have promised to give me 3 steps of land, but I have occupied the entire universe with 2 steps. Now think about where I should put my third. As far as the sun and moon shine with the stars, and as far as the clouds pour rain, all the land throughout the universe is in your possession. Of these possessions, with 1 step I have occupied Burloka, and with my body I have occupied the entire sky and all directions. And in your presence, with my second step, I have occupied the upper planetary system. Because you have been unable to give charity according to your promise, the rule is that you should go down to live in the hellish planets. Therefore, in accordance with the order of Shukracharya, your spiritual master, now go down and live there. Far from being elevated to the heavenly planets or fulfilling one's desire, one who does not properly give a beggar what he has promised falls down to a hellish condition of life. Sukadeva Goswami said, O King, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead was superficially seen to have acted mischievously towards Bali Maharaja, Bali Maharaja was fixed in his determination. Considering himself not to have fulfilled his promise, he spoke as follows. Bali Maharaja said, O best personality of Godhead, most worshipable of all the demigods, if you think that my promise has become false, I shall certainly rectify matters to make it truthful. I cannot allow my promise to be false. Please, therefore, place your third lotus footstep on my head.